Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the BitCar webinar hosted by Wholesale Investor. My name is Alex and I'll be hosting today's webinar. To begin, we'll have a short introduction by our Managing Director, Steve Torso, and this will be followed by Daniel Woodruff from BitCar. At the conclusion of the presentation, there will be a Q&A session. Should you wish to ask any questions, please do so by typing them into the question box located on the right-hand side of the GoToWebinar application on desktop. And now, Steve Torso.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Steve Torso. I'm the founding and managing director of Wholesale Investor. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you to the BitCar team for doing this, and obviously thank you to all for participating in this webinar. We're actually quite excited about hosting BitCar. We first met with them back in sort of November last year, and when they sort of outlined what they were looking to do with the BitCar platform, we were quite fascinated by it. What we understand in this area is that people are quite passionate about exotic cars and luxury cars, and we also understand that people that are passionate about this area are also looking for ways to participate and be active. And so when we first started speaking with them, we knew that, and of course having a look at the team involved, we knew that what they were doing is going to be something quite unique and something quite interesting. So what I'm always going to do is give a little bit of an introduction about BitCar, and then I'm going to hand it over to Alex, who's going to be the host, and also to the BitCar team. We're going to take you through a bit of an introduction to their platform and also about what they're looking to do as part of their sort of token generation event. So to give you a bit of background, basically BitCar is a hypercar asset tokenization. BitCar is the first platform in the world that will allow buyers to own and trade fractions of exotic cars. So obviously this is a growing area in general, but this one is specific to hypercars and exotic cars. Owners can peg their crypto to these hard assets for protection during hard times of high crypto volatility, and also users will have access to access to this as an asset which is typically outperformed. BitCar will also then seek to provide additional services and increase the BitCar currency utilization for the actual automotive industry. So after that introduction, I'm going to hand it over to the team. Please enjoy the webinar, and of course, the team will be available for questions sort of following.
Thank you, Steve. I would now like to welcome Daniel Woodruff from BitCar.
Hey everybody. And welcome to the presentation on BitCar. My name is Daniel Woodruff. I'm the Communications and Strategic Partnerships Executive here at BitCar. Thank you for joining us for this webinar, and I'll dive straight into it. So what is BitCar? BitCar is actually looking at being the definitive cryptocurrency in the automotive industry. And how are we doing this? How are we going to reshape high-end automotive ownership? We're actually starting by targeting the niche of exotic cars. Now, exotic cars is an umbrella term we use to categorize supercars, hypercars, and classic cars, but not just any type of car that falls under that name either. We're focusing particularly on high-end collectible cars that high net worth individuals would usually have. Now, with that being said, BitCar is currently on the end of its, reaching the end of its roadshow around the world, trying to promote the brand and the product. And the biggest misconception that we do have is that we're a ride-sharing platform, and that is just simply not the case. Ride-sharing platforms have existed for many years now, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're allowing people to have fractional ownership in these cars via cryptocurrencies, and I'll explain that and how we do that with our dual token economy later on in this presentation. So why would you want to own a fraction of an exotic car and not get to drive it? That's a question we get a lot all the time. And that's purely because the exotics asset class make up one of the best performing asset classes over the last 12 years. If you draw comparisons of this asset class alongside, say, the S&P 500, gold, silver, REITs, hedge funds, property. The list goes on. These cars have actually outperformed all of them over this period of time. And you can look at multiple indexes to support this case. The Knight Frank Luxury Index, which also draws its data from the Haggerty's Index, which is an index compiled of a set number of cars. But later on in this presentation, I'll also show you some examples of some specific cars and how they've appreciated in price over time. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're opening up the mass market to have access to this asset class for the very first time. And we do that using cryptocurrencies. We have two types of cryptocurrency: the BitCar cryptocurrency, which is our native utility token to the platform, as well as an asset token. And I'll explain the relationship between the two and how they work later on. BitCar is also a peer-to-peer trading platform for this fractional ownership. So when you acquire fractional ownership in these cars, BitCar will also have a live auction peer-to-peer trading platform that will allow users to buy and sell fractions of these individual supercars with each other. And as the last point shows in this presentation, these cars are treated as pieces of art and will not be driven. Fun fact, the BitCar platform actually originated as an idea for fractional ownership in pieces of art, tokenizing Picasso paintings, fine pieces of china, etc. However, after much discussion between the co-founders, they decided to focus on the hardest to fake art class of them all. That was cars, and the idea pivoted from there into the BitCar idea, into what it is today, and to have the BitCar token become the definitive token in the automotive industry further down its roadmap. So for many people who hear the BitCar speech for the first time, there is quite a lot to process, especially for those who aren't familiar with cryptocurrencies or blockchain. So this slide really helps to break it down to a few of the main takeaways that you should have from the BitCar platform and a few of the value propositions that we at BitCar offer our users. Now, as I said at the very beginning of this presentation, the number one takeaway really is that these cars, these exotic cars, make up the best performing asset class of the last 10 to 12 years. And this has been exclusive only to extremely high net worth individuals. You think of your Jay Lenos and your Sultan of Brunei and their car collections and why they have so many amounts of cars in their portfolio. The Sultan of Brunei, for one, has multiple Ferrari Enzos, and that's purely because they understand the value of this asset class. So we're really bringing this to the people, the mass market, for the very first time in a very easy to use and accessible platform. It's also a great way for them to diversify their portfolio, both against other asset classes as well as against other cars available on our platform. The second point is that we're a peer-to-peer trading platform. Like I said, it is much akin to a live auction platform where eBay meets eTrade. Users can purchase fractions of these cars and trade them to the marketplace to other users, buy and sell. And there's an interesting point here. Not only are we a trading platform, but this trading platform also allows users to eventually acquire 100% ownership of one of the cars on the platform. So one scenario would be in which ownership of the car is spread across thousands of users, all of which acquire, say, $100 or so in a car. While we hold these cars on a platform, for up to 15 years. We actually allow users to eventually trade their way up and buy more and more and more of these cars over time. And if we do reach a certain point in time, say 5 years along our timeline of holding one of these cars, we actually allow users to acquire 100% of the car and take it off the platform and take it for themselves. Now, this is very interesting. Why would anybody want to do this? It's because when we acquire a car, we peg it to the US dollar, the value of that car at that time. So to make it a bit more easy to understand, we create one asset token per US dollar value of the car once we onboard a car onto the platform. And I'll explain how the asset token works in my upcoming slide. But essentially, if we have a $15 million car brought onto the platform, say it's a McLaren F1, we will make one asset token. So this token represents ownership in the car for every US dollar value of that car at the time at which it was onboarded. So if it was onboarded for a value of $15 million, there'll be one McLaren F1 token for every US dollar. So there'll be 15 million McLaren F1 tokens. And that essentially provides a floor price to that token. And we then allow people to buy and sell these tokens over time on our peer-to-peer exchange. Now, this has already proved to be very interesting to hedge funds who understand the value in this platform. We are forecasting scenarios where people like hedge funds can come in, or very sophisticated users can come in and buy up as much of the car as possible for that spot price at that time. And over time, eventually buy up the remaining asset tokens of that car, because it means that over time, as the car appreciates, they can actually acquire 100% of the car for less than the going spot value at the time at which it is sold. And of course, to help make these decisions, the BitCar platform will have a plethora of third-party data from them to choose from, multiple index prices, etc., for the cars themselves to help them make the decision for which car or cars they'd like to acquire fractional ownership in. Of course, this concept is slightly more easy to understand when you understand the relationship between the two cryptocurrencies, which I'll get onto in my next slide. Third point is that the asset token itself is asset-backed. It's a stable coin. For many of you who do or do not know about cryptocurrencies, you will know that there is a lot of volatility going on in the market. Despite the massive boom we were seeing, way back at the end of 2017, cryptocurrency is very much facing a slump at the moment. Now, for anybody who holds a large amount of cryptocurrency, their biggest fear is that their net worth in that cryptocurrency could drop in half overnight. And that's a very, very real scenario. So they're faced with two possibilities: to either diversify their value of cryptocurrencies as investments into other projects to diversify any losses or gains. And their other option really is to off-ramp this into fiat currency, so into legal paper tender. Now, the issue with that is obviously depending on the jurisdiction of which you do this, you could be subject to capital gains tax, etc. So by having another type of cryptocurrency that's actually backed by a hard physical, hard metal asset, you can essentially relatively protect yourself from the volatility you see in the market, because it's backed by the US dollar value of an asset. And a Ferrari Enzo isn't going to drop in value in half overnight. So this is a great opportunity for people in a very liquid manner to back their cryptocurrency by something tangible. And we know this will appeal to a lot of people who have a lot of cryptocurrency, not just the car fanatics or the people who want to have access to this best performing asset class. And the dual token economy is also a very important takeaway. So this relationship between the asset token and the utility token, it introduces 6 unique pricing pressures, as we can see listed out over here. The first, the BitCar utility layer realizes demand pressures through platform uses and transaction cycles. So the more use there is on the BitCar platform, the more the BitCar utility token is required. Car tokens, so car tokens are the asset tokens. And the more of which they are bought, there's a supply imbalance that affects both layers, which adds pricing pressures to the economy. More platform cars equals removing exotics from circulation. So we actually, when we acquire, or when the platform acquires exotic cars onto the platform, we actually remove them from circulation between high net worth individuals, which would put an upward pricing pressure, a potential upward pricing pressure on the price of these cars. And 3 more points that are listed below as I'll move on in mind with the time. So I mentioned a couple indexes that you can use to track the value of this asset class, but I also like to use actual individual examples. My favorite being the McLaren F1, made famous by Rowan Atkinson, the actor behind Mr. Bean. And he he's crashed his McLaren F1 3 times, which has made it very popular. But and he's also sold it at auction for an astonishing price. And that astonishing price doesn't just apply to his car, but to others sold at auction. And we can see here in 2006, one of these cars was valued at 1.125 million, but then sold for 15.3 10 years later. And we see similar rates of appreciation with some classic models of the Ferrari, the F50 and the F40. In that same amount of time, from half $1,000,000 to just under $1 million, shooting up 2-3x in the same period of time, 3-4x, sorry, which is very, very impressive. And these are the kind of cars we will be targeting on the BitCar platform, which means that you can have fractional ownership in any one of these or any multiple of these cars, provided that they're available on our platform. How big is this opportunity? A lot of people also make the misconception that because exotic cars are looked at as a niche, that the opportunity size isn't very big. But according to information sourced by one of our advisors, we are looking at about $115 billion worth of exotic cars that are available on the market right now that are trading hands between high net worth individuals. Approximately $21 billion of these, he also says, are just Ferraris. So there is a huge market available here, and listed here are only some of the cars that we will be targeting. And initially for the platform, we'll be targeting cars at $650,000 US and above, and targeting $500 million worth of assets on the platform in the first 3 years. So the token design for anybody still struggling to grasp how cryptocurrencies come into this whole platform, we'll start with the BitCar token. The BitCar token is a utility token, so it acts as a native cryptocurrency to the platform. Users will acquire this token and they will hold their inherent value, and users will be able to access the BitCar platform. So users who access the BitCar platform will have X amount of their BitCar tokens. For example, let's say they have $1,000 worth of BitCar tokens. They then access the BitCar platform and they can see that there is a Ferrari Enzo, Lamborghini Miura, and a few other exotic cars available on our platform, say a Pagani Zonda. They will then say, of my $1,000 of Bitcoin, I would like to exchange $100 worth into the Ferrari Enzo. So you will buy $100 worth of that Ferrari Enzo. And I'd like to exchange $200 of my BitCar token into a Lamborghini Miura, and $300 of my BitCar tokens into the Pagani Zonda. Now, you can see how the BitCar token acts as a currency in this platform, but how do you represent your ownership in this car? In exchange for you handing over your BitCar tokens for that car, you get car tokens in return, and that's the asset token to the platform. So each car on the platform is represented by an X amount of car tokens, and I made the example of one car token being made for every US dollar value of that car at the time at which it was onboarded. So in exchange for my $200 in a Ferrari Enzo, I will get $200 worth of Ferrari Enzo tokens. Of my $300 spent on a Lamborghini Miura, I'll get $300 worth of Lamborghini Miura tokens. For those of you asking as well, how does this legally represent my ownership? Are these not just digital currencies that, just say I own the car? Do I really own the car? The way we acquire these cars is via third-party agents. So BitCar acts as a decentralized platform, but anything to do with the cars happens via our third-party agents. So they're the ones who go out, and they're located all around the world, who do their research. They source the right car for the platform. They end up tokenizing it, adding it onto the platform, and they also look after maintenance, storage, and insurance of the cars. That's essentially the relationship we have with them. BitCar acts as a decentralized platform, so we do not touch any of the physical cars. They take the title of this car, the paper title of the car, and they essentially tokenize it onto the blockchain. So these car tokens represent fractions of this paper title of the car. So when the car is brought up to 100%. 100% of ownership of the car is relinquished to users onto the platform, and the agent therefore no longer has ownership of the car. The design of these tokens was very, very important as well. We had a lot of regulatory and legal advice from some of the top tier legal firms around the world. We've had advice in multiple jurisdictions, and we've also had a lot of help from the regulatory body in Switzerland called FINMA. They had great inputs with our token design around the BitCar utility token. So where are we in our roadmap? Well, the co-founders for BitCar actually came up with 4 blockchain companies back in 2015. They have since executed 3 out of 4 of them, and BitCar is the 4th that they want to attack on the market. Now, having thought up of it a couple years ago, they finally decided to execute the project late in 2017. And we've really just been preparing ourselves since with our marketing push and started working on our platform and networks and relationships. Where are we now? We are coming towards the end of our ICO. So that's our initial coin offering where we sell our BitCar utility tokens in exchange for capital funding. And as you can see, eventually the first car will be sold in Q2 of 2023 with the expectation that we acquire our first car in the middle of 2018. As I said, BitCars was conceptualized in 2015, and we've actually been a working prototype since then. So the platform was built on the Bitcoin blockchain. Post ICO, we'll be migrating to the Ethereum platform, and our developers are working very hard on that. So we're still a very crude looking platform, but it's very secure and it works very efficiently. We've already hired an entire team of UI, UX designers who are currently working on beautifying the entire platform and ready for it to go to launch in the middle of this year. Where will BitCar go in the future? As I said at the very beginning of this presentation, we're not just looking at being a trading platform for fractional ownership of exotic cars. We're also looking at being the definitive token or cryptocurrency for the automotive industry. So we're looking at various other verticals further down our roadmap. The first being gamification, in an internal and external sense. Internally, we'll be actually looking at gamifying the peer-to-peer trading platform. So measuring the amount of trades between users, the amount of ownership and the amount of engagement that users have with the BitCar brand on social media. And points will be acquired for all of these activities. And will allow these points to be redeemed for prizes, very tangible prizes like supercar track days, VIP experiences at Formula 1 events and Goodwood Festival of Speed, etc. And I think more importantly, we will also be having a grand prize in the first 12 to 18 months where the highest ranked user will be gifted a Lamborghini Huracan. And that's very, very big news, and that's been taken very, very well, received very well online. So we've got a lot of people sharing that content at the moment. So that's a great way that we're actually looking at acquiring users and keeping up that engagement for the first year or so of operations. Externally as well, we're looking at the application of the 2 different tokens into the gaming industry, where people playing racing games can actually acquire fractions of actual supercars for winning in these games. Autonomous vehicles and ride-sharing platforms are also other verticals that we're looking at in the future, where we fully decentralized platforms like Uber and as well as the cars that are being used. And we can see applications for the BitCar utility token into these ride-sharing platforms, whether it's for payments, for distribution of any profits for drivers who do these rides, or whether it's for the distribution of the cost of a ride between the fractional owners of a car. And virtual reality is also a very interesting vertical that we're looking at in the more short term. We've got some excellent engineers working on our platform at the moment who've got some great experience with AI and VR, and they'll be integrating VR experiences where users can actually take a look at the cars that they're buying a fractional interest in on the platform. although we are very, very young, as you saw on our roadmap, we've only been around since the end of 2017. We've already established some very important partners, Alphabet being one of the first, a $300 million digital currency fund who've backed us for an undisclosed amount, which has been extremely beneficial with their contacts and networks as well. Moon Lambos, they allow users to actually purchase entire supercars in the UK and US using cryptocurrencies, and BitCar has just been, the utility token has just been accepted as one of the very few cryptocurrencies to facilitate these purchases. And Dadiani Syndicate, they are a art syndicate in Mayfair in London, and they were made quite famous online recently for facilitating the purchase of 4 collectible Formula One cars valued at £4 million entirely in Litecoin. So we've got some very dynamic partners who are helping us move forward in the future in the run-up to our platform launch. And who is the team? Our co-founders are Dr. Gobert Van Eck and John Bullich, as you can see at the very top. They've come up with 4 blockchain companies in the past, including BitCar, and can be looked upon as the pioneers for blockchain technology in the Australasia region, coming up with companies in the document verification industry, the medical records industry, as well as the power distribution and sharing industry, some of which have raised 38 million Aussie dollars in ICO funding, and very, very popular in Australia. Behind them, of course, is our CTO, Nuno Martins, who's developed a lot of these softwares and technologies, one of the best coders in the world. And to help promote a lot of this, we've got our 2 marketing ladies, Shri Ip, not only in marketing, but also head of legal and blockchain development, Shri Ip and Julia Bukoltz, experience in multiple ICOs and cryptocurrency and blockchain companies in the past. Shri is also on the board of Blockchain Australia, and has provided legal opinions, etc., and has really helped the token development and blockchain development for BitCar from the very beginning. Al Penman, as you can see at the bottom, one of our other full stack engineers with huge amounts of experience in AI as well, has been pivotal in shaping the BitCar platform to what it is today. And Charles Kilbourne, a C-level executive of over 11 years, out in the US, also a US Marine of 8 years, with lots of corporate turnaround experiences, CEO of his own company. And myself, I'm Daniel Woodruff, right there in the bottom right-hand corner, head of communications and strategic partnerships. My background is professional motorsports, so I'm a professional race car driver, TV host on Discovery Channel and Fox Sports, and I've also done various business development, retail turnaround projects throughout Southeast Asia, including Thailand, Malaysia, and South Korea. So together we form a team that has a lot of experience in the blockchain industry, which is an ironic thing to say considering how young the industry is, but it's always great to partner up with team members who've been in the industry from the very beginning. And we've got a team that's combined of both entrepreneurs and those with a lot of corporate experience. So we found that this is a great relationship in moving forward with the project. We've got a lot of media coverage over the last few months, and here's just some examples. You can hop onto our website, bitcar.io, to find out more and read more of these articles in detail. And where are we now? We're in our 4th round of our ICO. In our token sale, we've had various bonus structures, but we're now in the very last round. We've raised over 9.2 million Singapore dollars so far, and we facilitate the purchase of our BitCar tokens via Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, or Payeer. Now, Payeer is a payment provider that allows you to purchase our tokens via credit card or debit card or wire transfer. So we're trying to make it as easy and accessible to people as possible. And for those who want to get involved, it's 10 US cents per token, and you can head onto our website, bitcar.io, to purchase the tokens. And we also have a step-by-step guide to walk you through either cryptocurrency or credit card purchases for the BitCar tokens. Here are our social media handles. For any of you who'd like to see a bit more of what we've done, you can take a quick photo of the screen over here and check out our handles. We've got a lot of media coverage, so you can hop onto any of these platforms to read more. You can also hop onto our Telegram chat right there at the top, /BitCar_IO, where you can actually speak to the founding members of the team, the core members of the team, and ask them any questions at all. It's a growing community. We've got a big group chat that's growing bigger and bigger by the day. And we're based out of Singapore for anybody who'd like to meet us in person and find out more. Thank you very much for your time. I understand that we have a live Q&A session with one of my colleagues after this. So thank you very much for listening to me. And when Lambo, now Lambo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. We now have some questions from the attendees. Okay, so Tim would like to know, how much have you raised thus far?
Hi,
Daniel?
everybody. Hi. At the very end, I said one of my colleagues would be taking the questions. I'll be taking the questions. Thank you very much. The first one, we've raised 9.2 million Singapore dollars so far, which means we've already reached our soft cap. We reached it quite early on. That was around $5 million. And we've got about 2.5 weeks left of our token sale. It closes on April the 20th.
Fantastic. Okay, another question. Can you tell me more about how the cars are insured and stored and valued so we understand what they're actually worth?
Yeah, so the valuation goes by the market price. And as I mentioned before, we'll have quite a few different spot prices and indexes available on our website that source third-party data as to what the market value for these cars are, including that from auction houses. In terms of actually storing, maintaining, insuring these cars, everything to do with the physical cars will be done via a third-party agent. So BitCar remains a decentralized platform, but anything to do with the physical cars are done via third-party agents who are verified by BitCar and are bound by an agent's agreement. So they're the ones who are in charge of doing the due diligence research for the cars that are going to be on the platform. They're in charge of sourcing them, as well as maintaining them, storing them, and insuring them. And these third-party agents will be found all around the world. We actually thought that this would be one of the harder parts moving forward in our roadmap, trying to actually find people who want to get involved in this capacity. But we've actually received an influx of offers from potential agents all around the world, from Asia all the way to the States. So we'll realistically, further down the roadmap, be looking at having both agents and cars stored all around the world.
Okay, next question is, in terms of the amount of money raised, is that enough for you to execute your business plans? You've mentioned that you're looking at a 500 mil asset valuation within a few years. How do you get from that number to that point in the future?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. We've already reached a soft cap, so we've calculated the $5 million mark to be enough for us to move forward for the next couple of years. And the way in which we actually acquire that valuation of assets over time is this relationship that we have with our agents. So a portion of the money that we've raised in our ICO will be allocated to purchasing cars. So that exact value will be disclosed shortly after the end of our ICO. But let's say, for example, it's $2 million. Of this $2 million, we can actually set up a credit facility to the agents who will then use that money to buy the initial cars on the platform. Once the agents tokenize these cars on the platform and put them up for purchase to users, users will start buying fractional interest and fractional ownership in these cars, and that money will eventually go back towards repaying that credit at no interest. And eventually we'll get into a cycle where that 2 million will be recycled again and again and again to acquire more cars. And it's a cool little system where the more acquisition and more usership we have on the platform, the more cars we're able to acquire even faster.
Next question. Will the cars be used at all or just stored in a warehouse or secure facility?
So they will not be used. They will be treated as a piece of art and they will be stored as such. Though that being said, we will be looking at storing them in public places where the public can enjoy them. We're already in talks of getting some of these cars located in airports for the public to view, in showrooms, and one of the cool things we're actually working towards once we acquire enough assets is to actually have a BitCar showroom where we keep all of these for people to come by and visit, much like Jay Leno does with his cars.
Okay, next question. What exchanges do you plan on having this coin listed on?
Unfortunately, I can't say the exact exchanges that we're looking at being listed on, but that being said, when I was talking about the experience that the team has, we've been involved in multiple ICOs in the past, including getting them on exchanges. And I won't say the exact name of the company in which some of the team has worked on, but in the energy distribution industry on the blockchain, you can see what exchanges that company is on now, and we've got all the contacts there, so we're fairly confident we'll get onto some pretty good exchanges further on in our roadmap.
Okay, so final question. What geographies have been active in the ICO? Where are you seeing the fund inflow from?
Quite a bit all over. Quite a bit in Europe. I can't disclose the exact countries. That is private information, but quite a bit in Australia and quite a bit in Europe as well. Unfortunately, our token sale isn't available to those in China and Singapore, which would make up a huge market here in Asia. But once the BitCar token does hit exchanges, the tokens will be made available to them. So currently, I would say Australia and Europe in general, as well as the Middle East, of course. Yeah, sorry.
Fantastic, thank you. That concludes today's webinar. If you're interested in chatting more with BitCar, please visit wholesaleinvestor.com.au/BitCar, /company/BitCar, and complete the request offer form. You can also contact us at Wholesale Investor directly or check out bitcar.io. Thank you all very much for attending, and don't forget Wholesale Investors Crypto and Blockchain Convention, which will be held in Sydney on April 9. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.